Thank you, Poseidon. Yeah, I'll keep this pretty high level and maybe somewhat interactive. I guess I know that you have some questions, right, Poseidon, that you'll go along and maybe ask along the way. But yeah, just a brief introduction. So my name is Raul. I am a core developer of the Ethereum protocol. Most recently, I worked on the transition of Ethereum from proof of work to proof of stake. And this past September, we basically got rid of crypto mining for the Ethereum blockchain, which is a pretty significant milestone that's been in the works for many years. So I lead the team that kind of runs the most popular software today on the Ethereum blockchain for running a node. And we've operated as a company working on open source software for quite a few years. And most recently, our company got acquired by Off-Chain Labs that is actually working on the leading scaling solution for Ethereum today. They currently have a significant amount of applications using them, are growing very organically, and it's amazing to see really the growth of the community that they have. So yeah, that's a basic introduction.
Yeah, that the specific part of your stories, first of all, I think your personal stories is just as powerful and unique as your Prysmatic Lab stories. I don't even know where to start, but 4.5 years ago, when we bump into each other, there is one specific image I can show. Okay, you know which image that I'm gonna show.
Yes.
So this is something, I don't know whether we can call it impact investment, but I would definitely call it impact donation. That started on Twitter. I don't know whether Jan can see our screen, but 4.5 years ago, or 4 years ago, in December 18 of 2018, I noticed this thread on Twitter. Like, people are chasing after Prysmatic Labs, saying who is actually behind Prysmatic Labs. They want all the research grants from Ethereum Foundation, not letting anyone else to do that. And Preston, which is Roy Jordan's co-founder, was saying that we honestly are very young. We're still college students, especially Roy, younger than me, was still at junior year at Harvard. And Vitalik, without knowing them, coming out and donate 1,000 Ethereum, saying YOLO, you only live once, pays in that Ether scan. And then actually I became one of the hundreds that follow the same, although I can only donate 1 Ethereum, 5 Ethereum. But within 24 hours, there is an additional 1.8 million US dollar worth of Ethereum got donated to Prysmatic Lab storage.
Yeah, that was a pretty amazing moment. I think really like working on open source software, especially when you're working on something that's already open and already has like a token, like Ethereum, for example, is what people call a public good, right? Like, it's not, it's not necessarily a nonprofit work, but you're not really doing this to make money. You really want, to work on this software because you believe it's going to make an impact in the world, and you believe in the power that Ethereum, or for example, Bitcoin has, and you want to contribute. So really, that was our story, and we received significant donations from people, including Vitalik and Poseidon. Thank you for that donation too that you mentioned. Yeah, we received quite a lot of support to do this, and I think it really carried it out a long way. And today, fast forward, like now, Ethereum is significantly more powerful. It's we got rid of crypto mining, which was a significant environmental impact.
I first need to say a little bit sorry
Yeah.
to some of the people in this call whose main business, day job, is to do mining. But just
I see.
yeah.
Well, nothing personal, guys, for sure. But no, I mean, it's been, Ethereum has been wanting to move away from proof of work for quite a long time, move away from mining for quite a long time for many reasons. But it doesn't mean that there are no more opportunities to kind of for miners on it. I think now in Ethereum you can actually become a validator, which is kind of similar to being a miner, except that you don't need a lot of equipment to do it. So instead of having a large mining operation, instead with capital you can you can grow a return on kind of your Ether by supporting the blockchain.
Speaking about validator, I remember there is an early discussion that we talked about. I don't know whether it's a good time, but I think looking at the Ethereum 2.0 merge and then compare with this that we were talking about, maybe 2019, it
Yeah.
was pretty profound. Like, would you like to talk a little bit about Z stake and ZETH?
Just a little bit, I think that's pretty old school proposal and don't want to go into too much detail, but during the time, I think what's really interesting is looking at the economy of Ethereum, right? And like the economy of being a validator. So with 32 Ether, which I think at this time is probably something like $40,000, you can basically validate the Ethereum blockchain. Similar to being a miner, you don't need a big equipment. You can use your own computer, but you can earn a return on your Ether for participating in securing the blockchain, right? A lot of the things that we were thinking about at the time is how can we make this a lot more appealing to people that might not have 32 Ether to invest at a time? How can we make it so that anyone can kind of get involved and do this? And actually, there have been quite a few solutions that have popped up over the years. I think the most popular one today is Lido Finance. So with as little as I think zero point 0.1 Ether, you can stake that Ether and earn a return. And there have been many solutions. So, we also even brainstorm a solution. I don't want to get into too much detail here, but that was something that we thought about for quite some time. I think it's really nice to see that it's been a pretty big impact in the market, and some solutions have already approached this problem. How to make becoming a validator easier for people.
I know a lot of people have recently asked me that after the Ethereum 2.0 merge and
Yeah.
upgrade, what's the point of having other layer one protocols and public chains? Will some of them eventually die out, or they develop their own way to find some application niche?
Good question. So yeah, what's the point of all these blockchains, right? And I think that's like a big question. Like why do we need even like all these different chains? We already have Bitcoin and Ethereum, right? There are so many blockchains out there today, as everyone knows here. A lot of them they kind of promise very interesting technological innovation. So they say that, we can scale to world demand. Like we can do thousands of transactions per second, right? Like Ethereum is pretty slow, cannot process as many today. Bitcoin is pretty slow, right? So a lot of technologies and companies have approached the problem of how do we build like a scalable blockchain. There are definitely quite a lot of them, and a lot of them are not very differentiated. Unfortunately, I think there is definitely a lot of speculation on this, and it's very easy for a lot of these chains to kind of raise VC funds. And sorry, the cat. Yeah, it's pretty easy for a lot of these chains to kind of raise VC funds and kind of launch a token, and thanks to kind of retail adoption, they can kind of make a return on that. But that's only the beginning. I think that a lot of them will face struggles of trying to grow their community, trying to grow and find real product market fit. I do think that if you look at a lot of blockchains that exist out there, many of them are what we call zombie chains. Like they only have like one transaction in the past hour, like nobody's using these things, right? And they still have multi-billion-dollar valuations for their token, right? And I realize, of course, I'm coming from a place of bias, but looking at the facts, I think just like the product market fit just isn't there for a lot of chains. But Ethereum and Bitcoin have a ton of activity. I think Solana has a lot of activity, real people that are using it. And I think that's really interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think, naturally, we'll see what people care about. And eventually projects that don't provide any real value will just not be used.
Something that really struggle me is that there are some chain ranking very much in the top, having over 1 billion over market cap. But when I look at their active users of the DApps on top of it, and no much developers are actually developing on top of it, but it still have valuation of over 1 billion. Compared to, there are some projects that have been spending 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, sticking through maybe 2 bullish market, 2 bearish market, and still have more than 100,000 active users and maybe several thousand developers building on top of it. But because they are not doing as well as some other chains in terms of PR, marketing, community building, and maybe secondary market trading, market making, their valuation could be over 100x less than these chains. And so that makes the secondary value of a chain versus the primary market fundamental value of a chain so divergent. Like, is there any take or perspective from you on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think something that's interesting is even if a chain invests hundreds of millions of dollars on like ecosystem building and like developers, like you have to figure out what are the kinds of people that you're attracting, right? Like, are you attracting people that are just in it for the money? Like they're just here because you're giving out a lot of grants? Are they going to stick around? Are you building people that are actually generally excited about building on your thing, and are they finding value from it, right? So like that's super important. And yeah, and we'll see that really materialize as time goes on. Like you can what is what they call like mercenaries versus missionaries. You have the mercenaries, like the people that just are coming in and doing things for selfish reasons. I mean, we all do things for selfish reasons for a big part, right? But to some extent, I think it's who stays, who remains, and like bear markets really bring that out, right? Who are the builders that continue building, that really care, find value? And if you realize that most people leave, that's not a good sign.
Yeah, for Outliers fund investment, we have 43 scoring criteria. Although we don't bring that to the investment committee part, it is being used on the very front end when we screen newly received deals. But one out of the 43 is whether a founders commit full-time in bearish market or bullish market. I realized that Compound, Uniswap, Synthetic, Yearn, these DeFi projects, as well as Solana, Avalanche, Conflux, Algorand, Flow, these all came out. Their founders all commit full-time in about 2018, or even earlier. But this project got launched in 2018, 2019 during the bearish market, and they shine and capture values during the next bullish market, 2020, 2021. But founders who came out in 2017, a lot of them disappeared in 2018, 2019, but they showed up again in a different presence in late 2020 as a DeFi project, and maybe early 2021 as a new NFT project. Speaking about this, what is your perspective on NFT or the next narrative of the bullish market? I can say I'm very bullish on Web3 social content and real world assets to be like the narrative for the next bullish run. But I just want to learn yours.
Yeah, absolutely. I think NFTs will still be front and center, but they'll find like different iterations, which I think is interesting. I mean, for the next catalyst for having, just having what can get us out of like this bull market. I mean, there's a lot of theories. Like there's some that like people say that for a new bull market, we really need more institutional adoption. Like we need more like actual applications that people are using. I think like NFTs had their heyday when like people were using things like NBA Top Shot, of course, and it became a little bit mainstream. There were like big news stories about like people selling that amazing like artwork, and just really breaking into the mainstream. So we need more stories like that. And I think things like what happened with like, with gaming and NFTs related to that. So like what happened with Axie's growth and also like its peak and also decline was interesting. So there has to be some viral element to the next bull cycle, something that will kick off mainstream discussion once again. And I'm willing to bet the NFTs will still be front and center of that. I think maybe just in a different form and iteration, maybe a lot more artistically sophisticated, more functionality enabled. And I think that's going to be a really big part.
I think when people refer to NFT, most people refer to JPEGs, but
right.
I'm really bullish about utility functional NFT, even programmable NFT. Like my most bullish one in two directions. One is non-fundable intelligence. Like I think this kickstarted by the Elder State Machine guys. They are connecting NFT with neural network, and these NFT will evolve over time. just like 4D printer that we have built by MIT Media Lab. And the second one being the connection between NFT and geospatial mining, like basically real world kind of spatial meshes point cloud can be scanned, modeled, and upload as an NFT that you own in the multiverse or parallel universe. I saw Matt. Matt is my partner at Outliers Fund, and you probably seen Matt several times before. Matt, I saw that you have some questions for Raul.
Yeah, I do. I just want to say, Rob, I'm so super excited for you. I'm super happy for you. Through the past few months, firstly the merge, right? When everybody, I really remember the moment everybody was watching the merge, and I thought of you, thought of the hard work that you guys have done. Through the time that I was at Outliers, just every time talking to you, you guys are so serious about what you're doing with the merge, and really focused on it. I really just appreciate the efforts and the entrepreneur sort of grit that you guys took to go through that, and also all kudos to Poseidon too to link us up initially with the Accelerate and Outliers Fund. So I thought about that all along as I was watching the merge, and then later with the announcement from Off-Chain Labs, I was super excited as well. It's because I remember us talking about what would happen to Prysmatic after the merge, and you had said that a natural path might have been that you guys would move on to doing something in layer 2, and so it made perfect sense to me when I saw that Off-Chain Labs being a layer 2 acquiring a layer 1 client with Prysmatic Labs. Not only that, I think it's a great not only a great exit, but a validation of everything that you guys have done. But it seems like it fit. It was a great fit with the path that you wanted to take. So I guess the first question is, can you share with us, to the extent that you can, because I don't know, the sort of the background to the deal, but to the extent that you can, how did this acquisition come about? What was the main considerations? What was the experience like, through the acquisition, and how has it been for you so far? That's my first one. I have another one if we have time.
Sure, excellent. Yeah, I'll take a step back to kind of explain kind of what all this means, right, to a higher level. So, yeah, we're a team of just software developers working on Ethereum, right? And we're working on open source. We don't have a business model. We just focused on kind of building this really important software, which was a proof of stake for Ethereum and all the big things that are in the pipeline, right? So like, how does a team like that, fund themselves? How do they make money? How do they, what is their business, right? And our focus, we were just, like you said, like laser focused on. Oh, go ahead.
I'm gonna, yeah.
No worries.
No worries.
Yeah, so we were just laser focused on what we needed to do. We had a responsibility, we wanted to do it. But I think to me, what's really important is building a reputation and like sticking to it. We were thinking about what's the next step for us. So we had a team of like 11 developers thinking hard about what we really want to do. And what we really want to do is continue working on Ethereum. We want to just make it really impactful for the world. And really the next frontier is making it more usable for everyone. And that means scaling Ethereum. So how do we make it so that you can use Ethereum very cheaply and fast and use all the applications that you want on this blockchain? Naturally, I think the answer for us was to work with some of the leading teams that were doing this. Either we compete with them or we join them. And when looking at the market, we looked at the solutions that are out there. And one of them in particular, which is Arbitrum, Off-Chain Labs, they have I think the most kind of like the hottest scaling solution today for Ethereum. They've grown like fully organically, like they don't have a token today. They have so much adoption and people using their system that it was just a really natural choice for us. We started talking to their team. We really connected with them very well. They're extremely smart people. They have a technology that works. So we really wanted to join this team that is scaling Ethereum, right? And the thesis is, I think Michelle had a good question, like, what about multi-chain or different chains coexisting? Well, I personally believe in a multi-chain future on Ethereum. So like different solutions that all maybe work with each other, but they're all like tied to the Ethereum blockchain. I think that's very powerful. So yeah, the experience has been really great. The acquisition was very natural. Basically, they acquired all of our team of engineers to continue working on Ethereum and work on some of the scalability solutions that this company, Off-Chain Labs, is working on as well.
That's fantastic, man. Congrats. I'm
Thank
super
you.
happy to hear that. It sounds like because I watched the interview on Bankless, and it sounds like both teams are quite excited to work together. Seems that the acquisition is fairly simple because the folks have kind of worked with each other before and like each other, and so it sounds like it's going to be a powerful combo. The follow-up question to this though is, recently we sort of see, and some people call this sort of the next gen layer ones, but Aptos and Sui have sort of come on to the scene, getting a lot of attention, getting a lot of funding, as you mentioned, and they sort of brand themselves as next generation, mostly because it's a different group of people, different concept building it. So when the Ethereum EVM was created, I think it was based on JavaScript. So Solidity was based on JavaScript. It was more single threading. It wasn't meant to do very complicated things. And that was the original design. And so like if for example, our friends or another portfolio like XREX, they were trying to do like order books and things like that. You just couldn't do it on the Ethereum EVM. And Vitalik has a great roadmap for this, right? AMM was invented by Vitalik to solve this, because otherwise you have too high of a slippage and things like that. And so now that Ethereum has fully proven that you can run all of these different applications and scale on Ethereum to the point where gas prices are so high in the bull market and this and that. Now you have really enterprise players come in, and these are very different people. They're compiler people, they're language experts. They want to design, a very sort of efficient VM on sort of a next generation blockchain. And the premise is that what Vitalik has said with the trilemma is true. It's just that the triangle hasn't been pushed out to the boundary where it needs to be pushed, right? And so now, with and this is the premise for the move language, which is that, well, it's not an interpreted language. It's a compiler-based language. You can run multi-threads, process it. It'll, a lot of different things that you can run on it. And so, I think it sounds right. And Ethereum obviously has its own roadmap with ZK rollup and things that you would be able to do in there too. What do you think about these sort of new gen layer ones and the path that they're taking? And I'm not asking on a market perspective. Aptos is totally different on the market perspective, but just on technology, do you think that this is good for the industry? Do you think they'll succeed?
Yeah, innovation is always good, and especially at the execution layer. So like coming up with new virtual machines, new programming languages for developers, all these things are really interesting. Whether or not they need a brand new blockchain with their own token and everything and their own like security guarantees, I think that's pretty iffy to me. Like launching a whole new blockchain just for testing your new VM or programming language, I think is I think it's done in a misguided manner. I think a lot of these new VMs and programming languages, they could eventually be built on Ethereum. They could be built as layer 2 solutions on Ethereum. So like that to me is really interesting. That you can build like Aptos or Solana as like a L2 rollup on Ethereum in the future. Basically, Ethereum is the chain that has the most security properties outside of Bitcoin. It's really hard to censor, to hack the actual base layer. And we want to leverage that as much as possible, right? And like, if you can build something like this on layer 2 on Ethereum, then I think that's the optimal solution, because then you get access to, very strong guarantees for your app, for your system. you don't have to launch your own like blockchain with validators and all these things. And it, you get a lot more credible neutrality that way. I think that the way that a lot of these other layer one chains are launching is kind of poorly executed. It's very clearly it's very clearly like a power play by investors and by the team. There's a lot of focus on like the liquidity side, and I think we'll see if people actually find value. The developers actually stay for the long term. Find it really, really interesting. And is it driven organically, or is it driven by money from the founding team or from the investors? So time will tell. I think that the motivations are misguided. I think that there's a lot more potential to build a lot of these systems on Ethereum.
And I'm not asking this because I'm a big believer either way. But it is great, a great debate. I forgot who it was that said blockchains as cities, right? And the concept, and this is probably Cosmos doing their SDK with app-specific chain, but the concept is sort of that why there are other blockchains is that the narrative is that you got to allow people to continue to build blockchains, otherwise it's sort of an unfair equilibrium, right? The early guys who got in Ethereum, right? It's just sort of there's certain view that it's a small group of early sort of beneficiaries that got into it, right? And so for later comers, they want to build their own cities. New York will always be New York. It will just be the mega city that has whatever that is there. And then there'll be LA with Hollywood and everything else, right? So this is the app-specific blockchain concept, right? And I think Cosmos SDK is sort of one of those that are pushing this frontier. But I think it'll happen. I don't know whether they'll succeed, but I think it'll continue to happen because everybody sort of, seeing the success of Ethereum, right? Dreams of a success similar to that for perhaps a different application. Solana maybe is one that's, taking a bit of progress there and really making some progress, but we'll see. So personally, I think there will be more blockchains, maybe not a lot, but there will be more.
Yeah, I think that's totally fine, and I think it's great to have that innovation. If somebody has a really great idea to build a better system than what is out there, then they should go and build it. And really, hope that they execute it in a way that attracts the right people and makes them stay. So I would really like to see like more blockchains launch in a way that is a little bit more has more tempered expectations. So like, for example, not raising like at $1 billion valuation pre-product, right? Like not like having like 80% of the token distribution go to investors and the founders, and having something a little bit more tempered and just clearly more community aligned. I would really like to see that. So yeah, we'll see if the experiments work out, if injecting all that money will actually attract the right people. But it's a net positive, obviously, to have these new experimentations on VMs and environments, because we all learn from that. A few questions in the chat. So why do you choose off-chain labs versus optimism? So for those unfamiliar, there are a lot of different competing, like what we call layer 2 scaling solutions for Ethereum. So a few companies that are trying to scale Ethereum, and they are direct competitors with each other. They have similar solutions, or some have different solutions. Like I mentioned, I think Off-Chain Labs Arbitrum is currently the leading layer 2 rollup on Ethereum, and by kind of by total value locked. You can find this on a website called L2Beat. So let me link it here in the chat. I think they have grown almost fully organically. They have some of the smartest people that are working on these problems, and I think they're really motivated to make Ethereum scale. So we really love their team. We align really well. And I think Optimism is doing great work, but it was just a matter of a lot of cultural alignment. Ty has a question. So how do you think about ZK and optimistic rollups? So that's a pretty technical question. I'm not sure if I want to go too in depth here. But there are different approaches to scaling Ethereum. One of them uses this zero knowledge proof technology, which some folks may have heard of here. And another one is a lot simpler, uses optimistic, what we call optimistic rollups. So both of them, have a lot of differences. Zero knowledge proofs are super interesting and very powerful, but personally, I think that we're still very early. The technology still has a lot of work to be done. And, as a developer, I like simple things more than I like complicated things. When you have a solution that is very simple and elegant and easy to understand and explain to people, I think that to me speaks volumes than something that is a lot more complicated to understand. Zero knowledge proofs are like very complicated. You know, there's like maybe less than 50 people in the world that understand some of the cutting edge work happening on zero knowledge proofs for Ethereum. And like I said, I think simplicity wins if it's executed well. So that's why you know, in the short term, I'm a big fan of simpler solutions. If zero knowledge ends up scaling Ethereum and winning, then I'll definitely change my mind. But for now, I'm still very cautiously optimistic. All right. Will ETH eventually be reduced to a finance chain due to its security rather than a chain that could cater to other applications? That's a good question, Max. I think that basically the future of Ethereum is, yeah, it's to become the settlement layer for computation. You know, it's a pretty big statement. But the idea is that you want, like Bitcoin, you want to settle very high value transactions on Ethereum, and and you want to make sure you maximize its usage. For other things that don't require as much security, like games or like maybe buying coffee or whatever, like those things can be done off chain, and you can kind of settle on Ethereum. So that's what kind of solutions such as Arbitrum and optimistic rollups are doing, where they do a lot of the things off chain very fast and they settle to Ethereum. So yeah, I think in the future, ETH will be mostly a settlement layer for computation.